Okay, I think let's get started. Today we're going to talk about VS Code Java support and how it starts, how it works, and what's our next step. So hopefully there's enough information for you to enjoy this session. So we're going to start quickly because there are also 2 demos I'd like to show. Hopefully we can finish everything in those 35 minutes. So VS Code, I guess everyone, maybe we'll do a quick poll. How many of you use the VS Code already? Nice. So it's a code editor. It does code editing, does debugging with built-in Git, lots of things. And there was a infamous diagram saying, okay, this is the position of VS Code between the editor and the IDE. However, the boundary is kind of vague, right? So you can sometimes you see extensions which cross the boundary, and you don't know whether this belongs to IDE or it belongs to editor. So we don't actually have a very strict definition on that. And ourselves is also like exploring the boundary. So I will show you something in this context later on. And how it gets started, it's actually all gets started with the language server protocol. So with language server protocol, so each language provider can develop their own language server, and it could be adapted to different editors. It's not just for VS Code, it can be used for Eclipse, for Atom, for any other client which support the language server protocol. And it just started 3 years ago. There was 3 years ago in Zurich, in one of Microsoft office, and there was a hackathon. You see there are people from Red Hat, people from IBM, CodeEnvy, and Microsoft. They worked together to deliver the first version of the Java language server for VS Code. And shortly after that, it was literally 3 years before, I think it's end of September 2016, the Java language support for VS Code got released. And Red Hat was the main team behind this project. They are actually improving this project all along the road. And 1 year later, you can see September 2017, Microsoft rejoined the game and say, okay, language support is good, IntelliSense auto-completion is good. However, we do need some more, right? So developers are looking for other functionalities as well. So we provide more extensions like debugger, which is the first one, and the Maven, check style, text runner, and then we actually also added Tomcat, Jetty. So it's at this point, it's starting to kind of blur the line, whether it's an editor or it's an IDE, right? And then for us, it's also a confusing time because you have Tomcat, and people will ask more advanced feature of Tomcat. They're asking for auto reload, a lot of other things. However, even you see there are multiple companies behind that, Red Hat, Microsoft, those are big names. We actually have limited resource behind those kind of open source projects. So within our kind of company, so if it's 20-person team, you will have some revenue target. But if we're working on some open source, contributing to the community, it's typically a very small team. And we also have Pivotal helping us building the Spring Boot tools to support Spring Boot development within Visual Studio Code. And so you can see we actually kept adding new extensions for a year until October last year, whereas the dependency view actually being added. So I will show you all those extensions very quickly. And we kind of getting back to our recom saying, are we going to add more extensions? Are we going to add more app server support to VS Code? Is this going to be moved from the editor towards an IDE instead? But we decided we're not going to do that. Instead, we listened to our developer community, so people using VS Code at that time, still a small number of users, but they're asking for something, not necessarily those additional tools, but key features for editing and debugging. So during the next year, actually, we added a lot of other things. You can see there are fundamental features within the context of code editing and debugging. Seems like different code actions, different refactoring features, and basic features for debugging like expression relations, step filters, and you can also just debug your code instead of jumping to JDK, etc. All those kind of features. And you see there's also JUnit 5 test ng support. Lately, we've been adding more and more to this feature set, right? So we are making sure that for developers from Eclipse, IntelliJ, anywhere you come from, you are familiarized with the features, code actions you already use. You can find them in VS Code as well. So you don't feel that you lose a lot of productivity just because those features are not present. And you can see our usage is also growing very fast. Those are the daily, monthly active user numbers. We actually grew 8 times during the last 3 years. It's been a huge growth during that period. So with that, I'm going to quickly just show you those basic features and give you a taste of VS Code Java support. Okay, let me see. So it's not mirroring anymore. Okay, you're probably already familiar with VS Code. So here I have a sample project, which is the Spring Pet Clinic. Actually, I attended the session yesterday with the Eclipse here. They're using Spring Clinic. I think, okay, probably it's good to use this one as well. So it's a Spring Boot application. You can see here in VS Code, you have the File Explorer. So VS Code is an editor, which means it's very much File-centric. So the File Explorer is not very intuitive for Java packages, right? You can see there are multiple layers of packages being opened, and you cannot really close them all together at the same time. So for this reason, we have the Java dependency view, which if you are familiar with Eclipse, you see it's kind of the package explorer in Eclipse, right? So you can see all the packages down to the class level, and then you can see all your dependencies like Java files, which you actually included. And then there's an outline goes into the class, show you all the methods and other things within that class. So interesting things here is there's also the Maven project, right? So there's the Maven extensions, which we can show you all those plugins you use. You can run any Maven command, and you can also go to the POM XML. So if you go to POM XML, we can also show you the effective version of every dependency you use. There's also auto-completion for all the dependencies. We search for the Maven Central so that you don't need to type everything manually. And you can also create a new project with the Maven extension using the Maven archetype here. And for Spring Boot, there's something special. So there's a Spring Boot dashboard, which you can use to start and stop your Spring Boot application. And yeah, let's see. So I mentioned like code actions and refactoring. So I can just show you here what kind of code actions we have. Like you have organized import, override, generate different things. So if we let's try this. If we remove this one, and I say I want to generate toString, so we'll ask you which field you want to be included in the toString, and then generate it for you. So it's just basic things, but you probably use it pretty often during your work. And for refactoring, there's also lots of other options. Like here we can do things like extract to method, and then you can also probably do inline thereafter, right? So basic things, nothing very exciting, just everything you've been used to. And you can also do debugging. I just click F5. So you see that this is the debug session being started, and there's variable, window, watch, and all the threads, breakpoint you can configure. You can also configure more advanced breakpoint. And you can set breakpoint here. And let's see if it started. Okay, in VS Code, we also have let's try this. So it should hit the breakpoint here. So you can see, you can step through, you can see all the different variables. And yeah, that's basically the, okay, I think there's several other things I also want to show you. Let's stop this debug session for now and go back here. So as I said, we have check style extensions. How does that work? So for example, you have the check style XML file. So it could be in your workspace, it could be anywhere, it could be a URL you want to reference to. And you can set the check style configuration files for your system. And we have live linting enabled so that any check style issues will be reported here. Right, so you click this, you go to this particular line, which is too long for this check style violation, and then you can use the simple command to format document, then it's got fixed, right? So it's just very simple to use. And one more thing is the test runner. Yeah, we have the test runner here. Basically, it's an explorer, helps you to navigate all your test case in your project. And you can run individual test case. You can also run test case. So for example, you can also run test case with the code length here. You can also run all the test case all together. So if you run the test case, we'll generate a test report, and you can see which tests have passed, failed, and then go to those test cases which are failed. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we might not want to wait for it running all the tests. I don't know how long it might take. Let's switch back to the slide. So in addition to those, actually, we also have some other features helping those new Java developers. So VS Code is not just used for professional Java development. We also have lots of students developing Java with VS Code. One of the stories we have in United States, there are like AP CSA course for the high school students who want to start their CS programming career a little bit earlier, so they can choose a class to attend so that the credit will be transferred to their university for their programming classes. So for those students, we actually add a couple new things. One of them is so you can see one of them is the getting started page. So we help you get familiarized with the VS Code with Java concept. And there's also Java Developer Kit Explorer. It's basically where you fire off your Java project in VS Code will help check whether you have a proper JDK installed and configured. If it's not, we'll help you download and configure JDK all down the road. And after that, we also have the Java VS Code installer released as well. So VS Code, as it originally is a like JavaScript, TypeScript editor, right? And then we added the Java extensions and also include JDK into the installer. So for a student, if you just want to start with Java, you can just use this installer, worry-free, get your Java environment, everything configured for you. But if you already have your VS Code installed on your system, you can also use this to add the Java component to it, which is also very convenient. And yeah, well, okay, we can skip last slide. Basically, we're talking about how we engage with our developer community. We are engaging with the community on different channels. We are also interviewing with our developers. So any of you, if you use Java or VS Code, have any issues, you can talk to me. We can see how we can help you solve your issues and yeah, make you more happy with VS Code Java. And yeah, we've been talking about all those basic features, but probably it's not so exciting. I hope that the next section will be more exciting. So what's next, right? So we want to go a little bit beyond those basic features. Otherwise, why would you like to use VS Code instead of other things which already exist for a long time? So first thing I want to mention is the cloud development. So VS Code as a lightweight editor is perfectly suited for cloud development. Microsoft Azure has developed a lot of different extensions in VS Code for Azure development. Amazon, Google, and also OpenShift has their own extensions as well. So those things can probably help you be more productive for your cloud development. And so next one is the microservice stuff, right? You have Docker extension, Kubernetes extension, and different microservice frameworks has their own extensions, like developed for VS Code, helping you use VS Code along with those frameworks, along with those tools all together. And one thing I like to show you here is the remote development. So this is something pretty new. Microsoft announced it I think it's end of last year during Ignite, and we've gone a long road. So right now it's available for everyone. You can use. There's 3 modes. Today I'm going to show you SSH container. There's also another mode called WSL. Basically, you can use your Windows machine for your daily job, but you can use the embedded Linux within Windows. So and then you can use your VS Code installed on Windows side to access everything on your Linux side. On a single machine. But we're not going to show this. I'm not sure whether you're interested. If you're interested, let me know. I'm going to show you how SSH and container works. Basically, I think SSH scenario is pretty easy to understand. As a developer, you need to log on to your remote, either it's a VM or somewhere else, you need to look at the files, the logs, do whatever you need. So we usually use Vim on that Linux machine. But with VS Code Remote SSH, you can have all the VS Code functionalities available for you when you access the SSH remote. And for containers, it's basically more used towards scenarios where you want to have a very specific developer environment set up for specific workload. So for me, it's very handy when I'm developing for things like AWS Lambda Azure Functions, because all those things, all those cloud services, they have different runtime, they have different developer toolchain. It's kind of different from what I have on my local machine. I don't want to corrupt my local machine for just a single project, so I set up everything in a container, but I can still use VS Code to access that, have all the VS Code features available for you. So I'm going to show you those two things pretty quickly. So you see here, you have a remote explorer. And so there's SH target and a container target. So I can start with a container, open folder in container. So you can see from here, it's opening the remote. So it's no longer the file system on my machine. It's the file system running the Docker. You can see I have the Docker running here. So basically, within the Docker container, I have a Java environment and also have a Java project opened. So it takes some time to for the VS Code to get things like organized on the remote container. So you don't need to install VS Code on your remote container by yourself. When VS Code initialize this remote session, it will install things on your remote container by itself and do cleanup afterwards when you close the session. So let's give it a couple more seconds. Okay, you see, this is everything on the remote. So it's a simple application. You can also run the application on the remote. Basically have the same experience as you have with VS Code on your local machine. So it just, yeah. So you see it's actually working. And if we go back to the file system, you should have every features like those code snippet, everything that's working like auto completion. So this is, if you're working on a container, you have your dev environment setting up on a container, you can use your local VS Code to access that container. And if we go back and let's see, let me disconnect this very quickly. And I want to show you the SSH stuff. So this is a VM running on the cloud. I have the IP address, I have the SSH port open, and I can open the SSH host. So this is also a very simple hello world function, but actually this is something running remotely on the cloud, but you can access it using VS Code. So you no longer be constrained with the terminal. So you can still use the terminal on the SSH host, but you can also use the full feature within VS Code to do whatever you need. I'm not sure whether you are going to debugging on a PP environment or do something on your production, but this is just an additional tool, very handy for you, even if you're just looking at those logs and do search or whatever. Yeah. So there are also a couple other things I'd like to show you, which is IntelliCode and LiveShare. So those are the two features also available along with the VS Code Remote. IntelliCode is something we call like, so there are actually several features within IntelliCode head. So the first one is smart auto-completion, so context-aware auto-completion. We try to train the model from those highly rated open source projects to figure out patterns, give you a better suggestion based on your current code context. But there's also something different. So if you would like to upload your own code base, we can give you a more accurate prediction and more accurate suggestion based on your own code base. We're trying to do like whole line completions as well as like figuring out where the issue might happen based on our training using machine learning. And LiveShare is very useful for people working remotely. Like there are lots of people in our industry working remotely now, and when you need to do collaboration, we usually do things like share screens, whatever. But with LiveShare, you can share your session, you can share editing session as well as debug session. Like everyone, both sides can, actually it's like, can be point to point, it can also be one to like 30 to 40 people. I've been using this working with the high school students to teach them Java course as well. It's very, very effective. So let me show you those very quickly as well. So let me open my previous project. So, okay. So IntelliCode is actually pretty, I guess you all grasped the idea already. So if I, let me see. If I go here, you see if I'm in a if class, then we'll show you different suggestions. Give me a second. Yeah, seems like it's kind of rebuilding the project. Yeah, you see those little stars there? Those are the suggestions we believe, based on our model, are more accurate than the initial suggestions ranked by the JDT. So this is a quick thing of IntelliCode. Let me show you the live share stuff. So I'm the only one here, so I like to share the live share with myself. Probably, let's see, how can I do this? So this is another VS Code opened, and you can start a live share session. And I'm going to invite this one to this live share session. Okay. Let's see if it's working already. Yeah, I guess I'm not sure if it's the network or something. Let's give it one more minute maybe to join the session. Okay, so now you can see it's no longer loading the workspace on my local directory. It's loading the workspace on the remote on another directory. So if you look into that, so they are jumping to the same file. And if I'm moving around here, editing this side, you can see someone else is editing. And so I can edit also in this machine and you should be able to see the correct here as well. And if I'm debugging, so both sides can see the debug session, you can see all the variables and thread. So it's pretty handy for like remote collaboration. And just one more thing, I'm not sure whether you noticed both sides, they are different, not just because one is the insider version, one is the normal version. So do you spot any difference between the two VS Code here? Yeah, one of the differences you can see this menu is different, right? So this one only has the menu hidden here. The reason for that is because we cannot have the menu in a browser. So basically, this is the VS Code in browser connecting to something running in the cloud behind the scenes. So this is something not yet publicly available, but we have started a private preview. So if you can register for, you can apply for it, and then we will open the opportunity for you to try this cloud-based VS Code, hosting your workspace on the cloud, and using the editor or using VS Code client to access your cloud workspace. So this is something I think it's kind of trendy, right? So you see the Eclipse here, you see something, some other people also doing the same thing based on VS Code, and I think this is something we also like to show you. To give you a kind of a little bit taste of the future of VS Code while we're moving forward as well. Okay. Yeah, with that, those are everything I'd like to show you today. So those are all the resources. If you want to look at Java supporting VS Code, learn more about VS Code itself or the remote scenarios, or if you want to use live share IntelliCode or VS Online, which is currently still available, only available in the Insider, and you need to apply for it. You can try find all those information, or you can contact me on Twitter. I will be happy to answer any questions on Twitter as well as here if you have any. And with that, yeah, that's it. That's everything. Yeah, thank you for being here. And any questions? Yeah, please. For VS Code, right? Yes, we are. So let me show you quickly. So this is the VS Code, general VS Code, and so basically we have a command, configure Java runtime, and this command will check your JDK installation. And so in my case, I do have JDK installed. However, if you don't have JDK installed, we will recommend you like where you can download JDK, how you can configure it. So this one, so you see, I triggered this using a command, but if you're using VS Code Java first time, we will automatically try to detect whether you have those things already available or not. If not, we will pop up this screen, help you do this. So this is a good question. So how do you update the available JDKs? So we have used adopt Open JDK. Those guys, they have APIs available for us to query what's the latest JDK version, what's their like latest version for different distributions. So lately, I think Azure system also has the API available now. We might add them here as well. So we first picked adopt Open JDK mostly because they have the API available, so that we got all the latest every time. Yes, so you can see there's others tab here where you can find the links, but at the point of time when we developed this one, none of the others has the API available for us to retrieve the latest version. Yeah. Please. We do have the workspace concept. So the workspace concept in VS Code is slightly different than Java, right? So it's a little bit complicated, I would say. So right now in VS Code, if you're working with multiple folders, sometimes you need to do manually right-click each folder to add to your source path to make sure everything is included in your class path. And we don't have a very easy way to configure your class path using using a widget or whatever, right? So this is something we're trying to improve as well. Yeah. Yeah, please. Sorry. Move for the web, you mean? So you mean the last thing I just showed, or you mean to? Yeah. So I just showed you, right? So we have the VS Code online version. So the question was any plan to the web. So as we just showed, we have the VS Code online version, and obviously the online version, the purpose is to help you host things like not locally, remotely. Either you host it by yourself on your server, or you host it on the cloud, and you can use VS Code client or the web client to access the stuff. I cannot declare or review what's our timeline moving forward, but you'll probably get some information and exciting information pretty soon. Yeah, yeah, please. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's available as so it's not going to be available for for example, I think something you're thinking about, maybe you have a local VS Code and you can switch the browser to access it. It's not something we're envisioning at this time, but it's available as a self-hosted service, right? You can host it in your own server. You can open certain port, and then you can access the server, use the VS Code online version. Yeah. Yes, there are already people using it all around. Yeah, there are different companies sending us like issues and pull requests, although we're not promoting that at this point. Yeah. Yeah, it's all so at least that part of self-host is available online. Yeah. Please. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, let me give an example here. So for example, if you look at our remote, right, so you can see there's a remote container trial sample, right? So for us, we provide those things like if you want trial sample for different languages, we give you that flexibility. So the things we're thinking about is if so it's not yet available here, but it's probably possible for the IT department or the central DevOps team to provide such kind of list for your company for different project types as well, right? So if you are working on this kind of project, you want to bootstrap your own environment, you can have certain like capability like this, and then you can start a container based on that. And actually, if I look into this one, so the configuration is pretty straightforward. And it's all documented on the code.virstudio.com website. So those documentation is pretty clear as well. Let me show you the configuration here. Actually, I think it's here. Yeah, there are two configuration files. One is the normal Docker file. The other is the dev container file. You see, it's here. So you can see there's a Docker file define the base image and what kind of tools you want to install on this container. And there's a dev container file defines like the relationship between the container and your project, right? So sometimes you have your project, sometimes you have some configurations. So for example, for Java, when you have Java home, you have different run argument, those kind of things. Basically, you have an existing Java project, and you add those two files to get them prepared for the container remote scenario. Yeah. Okay, I think we have 3 more minutes. Any other questions? Please.
I've seen the start that you did the super implementation.
Mm-hmm.
Is it part of LSP now?
Yeah, so this is interesting. So you mean the navigate to super implementation, right? This is a new feature we just added, I think, 2 weeks ago, right? This is part of the LSP implementation, right? However, we are, from the UI perspective, this is something we still want to, let me see. Yeah, this is something we're doing some experiment on, actually. We're trying to see whether people use it or not. Give me a second. Yeah, if we go to Pet Clinic, we should be able to find something. This one is not showing. Yeah, anyway, so basically we did build it within the LSP. However, one limitation for us is that right now in VS Code, the UI doesn't give you a place to easily position those like go to super implementation or other navigation features. So we add a feature on the hover. You probably see it, right? But we do want to standardize this across VS Code. So we're talking with VS Code core team to see how we can do that. Currently, I think the VS Code core team has a bar under the hover saying, okay, you can pick definition, you can see quick fixes. We're trying to see whether that can be added there as well. So like this is particularly interesting as a new feature we're trying to experiment on the UI to see how we can actually expose this feature easier so you can notice that instead of like we shipping all the features without your notice, right? Yeah. Okay, I think that's it. If you have any other questions, you can find me here or around the place. Yeah, thank you very much.